You threw away the wrong thing this morning. I know you did, because almost everyone does. That thing sitting in your kitchen right now, the thing you are about to toss in the trash, is worth more to your garden than any bag of fertilizer you've ever bought. And I'm not talking about compost. I'm not talking about coffee grounds or eggshells. I'm talking about something so simple, so cheap, so overlooked, that when I tell you what it is, you're going to walk straight to your kitchen and never throw it away again. I've been gardening for over a decade. I spent hundreds of dollars on worm castings, mycorrhizal inoculants, liquid kelp, fish emulsion, you name it. And nothing, absolutely nothing, has transformed my soil faster than this $1 kitchen waste that most people throw in the trash without thinking twice. But before I tell you what it is, I need you to understand something. Your soil is not just dirt. It is alive. Right now, underneath your feet, there are billions of microorganisms, fungi, bacteria, and insects working around the clock to break down organic matter and feed your plants. And worms, earthworms specifically, are the architects of all of it. Where worms go, life follows. They create channels for water and air. They digest organic matter and leave behind castings that are literally the most nutrient-dense substance you can add to your garden. Scientists call worm castings black gold. And the only thing standing between you and thousands of these incredible creatures living in your soil is knowing what to feed them. So what is this $1 kitchen waste? It's watermelon rind. That's it. The thick white and green outer layer of watermelon that you've been throwing away your entire life. One watermelon. $1 at peak season. And in 3 days, you will see more worms in one spot of your garden than you've ever seen in your life. Now I know what you're thinking. Really? Watermelon rind? That sounds too simple. That sounds too cheap. And that is exactly why it works and why nobody talks about it. We've been conditioned to think that fixing our soil requires expensive products, complicated methods, and years of patience. But nature doesn't work that way. Nature is elegant. Nature is simple. And worms have been eating decaying fruit for hundreds of millions of years before we ever showed up. Here's the science. Watermelon rind is about 95% water, and when it starts to break down, it releases that moisture directly into the soil. In hot, dry conditions, this is like opening a 5-star restaurant for every worm within a 3-foot radius. The rind also contains cucurbitacin, a compound that accelerates microbial activity in soil. More microbes means more food for worms. More worms means more castings. More castings means more nutrients available to your plants. It's a chain reaction, and it starts with something you were about to throw in the trash. But here's what I want you to think about for a second. How much have you spent on your garden this year? Fertilizer, amendments, potting mix, pest control. Add it all up. Now imagine if half of that was completely unnecessary because you were already throwing away the solution every time you had a summer barbecue. Does that frustrate you or does it motivate you? Drop a 1 or a 2 in the comments right now. 1, if it frustrates you. 2, if it motivates you. I read every single comment and I want to know where you're at. Now let me walk you through exactly how to do this because there's a right way and a wrong way. The wrong way is to just throw a watermelon rind on top of your soil and walk away. That will attract pests. It will get moldy, the gross way, and you won't see the results I'm describing. The right way takes about 4 minutes and the difference is dramatic. First, you want to wait until your watermelon rind is at room temperature. Don't use cold rind straight from the fridge. Cold temperatures slow microbial activity and worms are less attracted to cold food sources. Let it sit out for 30 minutes to an hour. While you're waiting, find a spot in your garden where you want to concentrate worm activity. This could be a raised bed, an in-ground garden, a patch of lawn you're trying to rehabilitate. Anywhere you want, richer soil. Choose a spot that gets morning sun but some afternoon shade if possible. Worms will move away from areas that get too hot and dry out. Now take a small hand trowel and dig down about 3 to 4 inches. You're not making a deep hole, you're just creating a shallow pocket in the soil. Place your watermelon rind flesh side down into that pocket. This is important, flesh side down. The white rind facing up creates a natural dome that traps moisture underneath. It also protects the decomposing flesh from drying out in the sun. Then loosely cover the edges with a thin layer of soil. You don't need to bury it completely. You just want to seal the edges so you're trapping the moisture and the scent underneath. Now walk away. Come back in 24 hours. Lift the rind gently and look underneath. You will almost certainly already see increased worm activity, pill bugs, and beneficial soil insects beginning to gather. By day 3, if your soil has any worm population at all, and almost every outdoor soil does, you will see a concentration of worms under that rind that will genuinely surprise you. Have you ever tried this before? Or is this the first time you're hearing about it? Let me know in the comments. And if you're watching this in winter or you live somewhere that watermelons aren't cheap right now, keep watching because I'm going to give you 4 other kitchen scraps that do the exact same thing year-round. But first, let's talk about why this matters beyond just getting more worms. Because here's the bigger picture that most gardening channels never talk about. We are in a global soil crisis. 30% of the world's agricultural land is already severely degraded. Topsoil that took thousands of years to form is disappearing at a rate that should terrify every single person who eats food. Conventional farming strips soil of its biology. Chemical fertilizers feed plants directly, but kill the microbial ecosystem that plants evolved to depend on. And the result is soil that looks fine on the surface, but is essentially biologically dead. Now you can't fix industrial agriculture in your backyard, but you can build something extraordinary in your own small piece of earth. And when you understand that something as simple as a watermelon rind can kickstart a biological chain reaction that moves your soil closer to health, you start to see your kitchen scraps in a completely different way. You are not throwing away waste. You are throwing away soil building gold every single day. And the question I want to leave you with, not yet, keep watching, but sitting in the back of your mind, is this: what else are you throwing away that your soil desperately needs? Let me give you those 4 alternative kitchen scraps right now, because I promised and I keep my promises. Number 1 is banana peels. Not just any banana peel. Slightly overripe banana peels that have started to turn brown and soft. The sugars in overripe banana peels feed soil bacteria at an accelerated rate. Use the same method I described with the watermelon rind. Flesh side down, shallow pocket, loose soil of the edges. Banana peels also contain potassium, phosphorus, and calcium, 3 of the most important minerals for plant root development. If you have flowering or fruiting plants, banana peels under the drip line of those plants will make a visible difference in bloom size and fruit production within 2 to 3 weeks. Number 2 is used coffee grounds, but not the way most people use them. Most people sprinkle coffee grounds on top of their soil, like they're seasoning a steak. This is wrong. Dry coffee grounds on the surface of soil create a hydrophobic crust that actually repels water. Instead, mix your coffee grounds with an equal volume of water until you have a slurry. Pour this slurry directly into the soil around the base of your plants. The liquid carries the grounds into the soil profile where worms and microbes can access them. Worms are intensely attracted to coffee. Some vermicomposters add small amounts of coffee grounds to their worm bins specifically to increase worm reproduction rates. Number 3 is pasta water. When you boil pasta, that cloudy, starchy water is loaded with nitrogen and complex carbohydrates. Let it cool completely. Never use hot water in your garden, and use it to water your plants instead of pouring it down the drain. Starchy water feeds soil fungi, which feed bacteria, which feed worms. It also slightly acidifies soil as it breaks down, which is beneficial for acid-living plants like tomatoes, blueberries, and roses. I've been doing this for 3 years, and I will never pour pasta water down the drain again. Do you do this already? Tell me in the comments. I'm genuinely curious how many of you are already using pasta water. Number 4 is onion skins. Not onion pieces, not the bulb. Just the papery outer skins that you peel off and throw straight in the trash. These skins are absolutely loaded with quercetin, a natural antifungal and antibacterial compound. When you bury onion skins in your soil, they break down slowly and release quercetin, which suppresses harmful soil pathogens while leaving beneficial microbes untouched. Think of it as a natural soil antibiotic. I collect onion skins for a week in a small bowl on my counter, then bury a handful every 7 days in different spots around my garden. My soil disease pressure has dropped noticeably since I started doing this. Now here's something I want you to really sit with. Everything I just described costs nothing. $0. It is made entirely of things you already have, things you were already throwing away. So why don't more people know about this? Why isn't this in every gardening book, every extension office pamphlet, every beginner gardening video? I have a theory, and it's a little uncomfortable. There's no money in telling you to save your kitchen scraps. There is no product to sell. There's no affiliate link to click. The most effective soil building strategies on the planet are free, and free doesn't fund advertising campaigns. So the information stays quiet while the fertilizer aisle gets bigger. That's why I make videos like this. And that's why I want you to share this with one person who gardens. Just one. You don't need to blast it everywhere. Just think of one person you know who's struggling with their soil, who's spending money on amendments that aren't working, who's frustrated that their plants aren't thriving, and send this video to them. That's it. That's all I'm asking. Now let's go deeper, because understanding how to attract worms is only the first layer of this. The real transformation happens when you stop thinking about individual inputs and start thinking about building an entire ecosystem. Your soil has layers. The top inch is the zone of active decomposition. This is where fresh organic matter gets broken down by surface feeders. The next 2 to 4 inches is the zone of maximum biological activity. This is where worms live, where fungal networks are densest, where most nutrient exchange between plants and soil organisms happens. Below 6 inches you have the subsoil zone, which most gardeners completely ignore, but which controls drainage, water retention, and mineral availability. When you place watermelon rind using the method I described, you're targeting that second layer, the zone of maximum biological activity. You're delivering a concentrated food source directly to the organisms that matter most. Over time, as you do this repeatedly in different areas of your garden, you're essentially training your worm population to colonize your entire garden space more densely. Worms follow food. You control where the food goes, you control where the worms go. And where the worms go, your soil gets better. There's a concept in soil science called the worm effect. Researchers have documented that in soils with high earthworm populations, water infiltration is up to 10 times higher than in soils without worms. Compaction is dramatically reduced. Nutrient availability, the actual concentration of plant-accessible nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium in the soil, is between 4 and 11 times higher in worm-active zones than in worm-absent zones. These aren't small differences. These are transformative, plant-visible, harvest-measurable differences. And here's the thing about soil health that nobody tells you at the garden center. Healthy soil is resilient. It recovers from drought. It buffers against disease. It supports plants through stress events that would kill plants growing in degraded soil. When I had a late frost hit my garden 2 years ago, the plants growing in my most worm-active beds bounced back in 5 days. The plants in the beds I hadn't been working on as actively took 3 weeks to recover. Same plants, same frost, same watering schedule. The only variable was soil biology. What's your biggest soil challenge right now? Is it compaction, poor drainage, low fertility, plants that just never seem to thrive no matter what you add? Tell me in the comments. Describe your situation, your climate, your soil type, what you're trying to grow, and I will personally reply with specific suggestions for your exact situation. I mean that. I do this every week on this channel because I genuinely believe that personalized advice changes gardens in a way that general advice never can. Let me now address the question I know some of you are asking. What if I don't have many worms to begin with? What if my soil is really degraded? What if I live somewhere with sandy, poor, depleted soil where the worm population is basically non-existent? This is such an important question, and the answer is going to change how you think about this entire process. You do not need worms already in your soil for this to work. You need to make your soil attractive to worms. Worms migrate. They travel through soil following moisture, food, and temperature gradients. If your soil is currently inhospitable, worms from adjacent areas, from your neighbor's yard, from the edge of a lawn, from soil under nearby trees, will move toward the conditions you're creating. It may take 2 to 4 weeks instead of 3 days. But it will happen. Nature abhors a vacuum, and a rich, moist, food-filled pocket of soil in an otherwise depleted area is like a beacon. Additionally, you can accelerate this by purchasing a small amount of red wigglers from a local bait shop or garden center, often just $2 or $3 for a container, and releasing them in your watermelon, rind zone. Red wigglers are surface feeders and incredibly efficient decomposers. They're not the same as the deep burrowing night crawlers that create the long drainage channels, but they will rapidly process your kitchen scraps into castings and begin improving your soil biology from the top down. Over time, as surface conditions improve, native earthworm species will move in and establish. We're now at the part of this conversation that I find most exciting, because everything we talked about so far is tactical. Watermelon rind here, banana peel there, pasta water every other day. But I want to zoom out and talk about philosophy for a minute, because the way you think about your garden determines everything. Most people think of gardening as a battle. You versus pests, you versus weeds, you versus poor soil, you versus weather. And in that battle mindset, you were always spending energy. Physical energy, mental energy, financial dish. Fighting. But there's another way to think about it, and the people who garden this way get dramatically better results, with dramatically less effort. It's the idea that your job as a gardener is not to fight your environment, but to create conditions. Your job is not to add fertility directly, but to feed the organisms that create fertility. Your job is not to water your plants, but to build soil that holds water. Your job is not to protect your plants from disease, but to build soil biology so robust that disease pressure is naturally suppressed. When you shift from fighting to creating conditions, everything simplifies. Your kitchen scraps become inputs. Your garden becomes an ecosystem. And instead of spending money to grow food, you start spending almost nothing because you're working with nature instead of against it. That shift, that single philosophical shift, is worth more than any product I could recommend or any technique I could teach. And if that resonates with you, if that idea landed somewhere that felt important, I want you to save this video. Not just like it, save it. Come back to it when you're frustrated with your garden. Because this is the foundational idea that everything else builds on. Before I wrap up, let me give you a simple action plan that you can start today. Not tomorrow, not next weekend. Today. Step 1. Don't throw away your next watermelon rind, banana peel, or pasta water. Set them aside. If you don't have these right now, that's fine. Start tomorrow when you do. Step 2. Identify one spot in your garden or lawn where you want to improve soil quality. Just one spot to start. The corner of a raised bed, the base of a struggling fruit tree, a patch of lawn that's always thin and yellow. Pick one spot. Step 3. Use the burial method I described to place your kitchen scrap in that spot. Set a reminder on your phone for 72 hours from now. Step 4. In 72 hours, go lift that scrap and look underneath. Take a photo of what you see. Then come back to this video and post that photo in the comments. I want to see it. I want to celebrate your results with you. That's it. 4 steps. 15 minutes of actual hands-on time, and the potential to completely change how you think about your soil and your kitchen forever. Here's my final question for you, and I want you to really think about this before you answer. If you knew that your kitchen waste was genuinely more valuable to your garden than store-bought fertilizer, would that change how you cook? Would you meal plan differently? Would you start growing things specifically because of the scraps they produce, or would nothing change at all? There is no wrong answer. I'm asking because I think about this stuff constantly, and I want to know how you think. Thank you for spending this time with me. If you made it to the end of this video, you are exactly the kind of person this channel exists for. Someone who wants to understand the why, not just the how. Someone who's willing to think differently and act on it. Subscribe if you haven't, because I put out content like this every week, and I would genuinely love for you to be part of this community. And share this video with someone who needs it. You already know who that person is. Now go save that watermelon rind.